I know what's important to me. And even though that looked like forever, doesn't mean that just because that changed, it doesn't mean I can't have a new season or a new chapter. And so that's when I gave myself permission, which is what I tell people all the time, permission to dream again, permission to get excited again, permission to realize that there is something that comes after. But if you're not willing to look for it, that door could stay closed forever.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. As you can see, I have an incredible guest here with me today, Hope Shortt. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am good. I hope you are well. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, well, we are excited to have you. And I think you're just the perfect person to be here and share a glimpse into your story and your journey in the direct sales world, because I feel like we all have little twists and turns and curveballs thrown at us. And certainly right now, there's maybe a little bit of an unsettling feeling in the industry. So I think it's going to be a great conversation just around how you've navigated things personally, how you've coached others to do so professionally, all the things. And I know that you are now at your new home over at Jordan Essentials. So congratulations on that. Tell us your story. How did it lead you to where you are now?
Thank you. So I actually started in direct sales in 2007. I was a fresh new mom, 20 years old, had no idea what I was doing. And I always like to put this little note in here that I was not a fan of this industry. My mom had been in this industry. She was a single mom trying to pay bills. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that would be so terrible to pack up all these products and go to a stranger's home and, just hope and pray that you could sell something. I just thought that does not sound fun. Little did I know that the reason that she chose it was for the flexibility and the idea that she could make as much as she wanted or needed. So at 20 years old, I was married, had a new baby that had some medical issues, and I started looking for a part time job and realized that was going to be really difficult because someone else was going to choose my schedule for me. Someone else was going to let me know if I could take off for doctor's appointments and things like that. So found myself on the web browsing around trying to find a company that would work for me. So yeah, I took the plunge, maxed out a credit card that I had that had $115 left on it and bought my kit with tax and everything. It was like $107 and just jumped in and decided, what the heck? I've wasted $99 before. Why not see if it can make me any money back? So yeah, that's how my journey with direct sales started. No experience whatsoever, but I did identify early on that a positive attitude and energy is what captivates an audience. So the idea that I was just so excited about the product and so excited about the community and the mission that I had become a part of, that was energizing. So people were just wanting to gravitate towards that. There were people wanting to come to my parties and people asking me, can I book a party? Because I really made it a part of community. I wanted it to be an outlet for people to come and have fun and to enjoy themselves, but to also make friends. So my business did grow kind of fast. Definitely had hardship, empty calendar, people who chose to go somewhere else or lost a recruit or someone signed up that ghosted me. I mean, I experienced all of that, but at the end of the day, I knew why I did this. I knew what was important to me, and there was nothing that anybody could say to me to take me off track. There was no, there was no making fun of my industry or the fact that I was a part of this scheme. That stuff just didn't matter to me because I thought, I see the opportunity. I see the women in the catalogs. I see them making six figures. I want that. So I stayed, focused, put my blinders on and started to build a business. I promoted to the top of the company in just 4 years. I was the youngest national leader in the company and had, a smaller but mighty team. So even though my numbers were a bit smaller, my sales were out of the water because all of my team members were active and really involved in the business. And I made it a goal not to just build leaders, but to build sustainable leaders. I wanted this for them long term. So, yeah, all the way up until 2022, I was rocking this business and my business exploded even more over COVID and had a wonderful journey in that company and definitely unlocked my calling, identified who I was and what God had built me to be. And I stepped into that role and I have let it proudly ever since.
That is amazing. I love that, and I love that things come full circle. You're like, "What are you doing? Packing up all this stuff?" Like, that's
Thank
never gonna
you.
be me, and how does that
Oh,
always happen? Like, "Boy, sounds a
yeah.
lot like my mom right now," right?
I say
That
that
is
daily. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I know that your business has, allowed you to make some of those leaps from being, the young mom that is maxed out her credit card to purchase a kit and not sure where it's going to take you to I'm all in, top leader in the company to the corporate side of things. And so I know many people have experienced those kinds of leaps before, or even maybe finding themselves right now in a time of transition and kind of figuring out like, what is the next season for me? What does this look like for me? So, any advice for those that might be sitting with it right now, thinking like, well, I've kind of done it this way before, and now life happened, and I'm going to go a different direction. Like, how do I make those pivots? How do we make those leaps? How do we make those transitions, even when they feel scary?
I had never even thought about going to corporate. That had never been on my radar at all. I loved what I did. And gosh, I loved my team, my leaders. We had incredible culture and community. But right coming out of kind of COVID, the spring of 2022, our company that I had been with for 15 years at that time was going through a lot of changes. The COVID really rocked this industry. We were going through a lot of changes, and a lot of our changes were leadership changes, which really rocked our company. And I had such a passion for this brand and for the company that I felt like I kind of loved it a little bit differently. And I'm sure a lot of people say that, but like I felt like I loved it differently than a lot of people because I just love this industry and what this company stood for. So when we were experiencing all these changes and the highs and the lows, we were in Punta Cana and I just had a conversation with my husband one night in the hotel room and I was like, this is just so odd. Like it doesn't feel like what it used to, and I'm all about embracing change. I've experienced enough of it, but I just started to really pray about what that looked like for me. If it looked different in the future, is this what I wanted it to be? Is this where I wanted to grow? Is this where I wanted to take my team? Like all of those things, and I just felt like God really spoke to me on that trip and told me to take a leap of faith. And on the plane ride home, I'm telling my husband like, I think I'm going to apply for this open position
Yeah.
corporate. And he's like, you've lost your mind. Like, that's everything that you've tried to avoid is like a time clock and a boss and all those things. And I said, I know, but like, I just believe in this industry. And outside of everything that I did to sell product, if I could wake up every day and coach and train and motivate and inspire, like, that's where my heart is. That's where my sweet spot is. And I believe that's where my superpower is.
Yeah.
So, I definitely took a leap of faith to start a conversation. I know not all companies are open to bringing from the field, but if there's one thing I can say that I want to stress is that there is such a unique power that comes from someone being in the field that's been in the trenches of the modern day direct sales company and being able to influence the corporate side. So, anyway, went through a lengthy distraught couple of months of crying and realizing I would have to walk away from everything I'd built, but also believing that I was at this place for a unique purpose. And so I did apply for the job. I made the change, lots of tears for my team, but I was really honest to tell them, like, this decision is actually not about me. This decision is about you. So I felt like if I could go over to the corporate side and influence some of those decisions and bring some of that modern day training and influence that we were experiencing out in the field, that it would bridge this gap between home office and the field.
Yeah.
So took that change and honestly, it has just been nonstop ever since. But I was over corporate on that side at my previous company for a little over 2 years. And it was a learning curve for sure. But I realized that it's where I was supposed to be. I mean, there was no question asked once I really found my rhythm and I started building training programs and coaching programs and influencing incentives and field communication. It started to really just resonate with the field that this was the right choice and I was comfortable and confident in it. So it was challenging to say the least, but I stayed true to who I was and identified that what I loved about this industry wasn't necessarily selling product. It was being a part of a company and a culture that I could be proud to represent. And it was linking arms with women to help them climb that ladder just as I had.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. And I think we share a similar passion for, being in the field, but bringing that kind of like boots on the ground experience into the corporate office as well, right? Because
Yes.
I think that sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect, or it's hard to really see the needs or the challenges or to get that clarity without actually like being out there doing it. You kind of see things from a different perspective and just have a different lens. So I feel you on that. And I think often we think of change, and I think you said the word change like 10 times now, right? Like change, change, change. We know that a lot of people are experiencing change right now. And so often we regard that as hard or it's uncomfortable or it's challenging or it's difficult to navigate. And I think it is. Nobody's, I don't know that many people that are like, I love change. So fun. But we also know that I feel like every major leap I've made in my life has been because I made a change, right? We know that
Yeah.
growth happens. So, as much as we kind of have a negative association with the word change, any thoughts on how to maybe reframe that as an opportunity or it's exciting to be a part of a change that's happening in the industry or in your personal life or in your professional life? How would you coach someone that maybe is thinking, oh, I don't want to deal with the change that I'm being faced with right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's very little change that I've had in my life where I thought, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Very few times has that happened, if any. But I know for me, like in my journey, the change to corporate was a decision that I made. It was challenging. I won't say that it was difficult. It was challenging, but
Mhm.
I started to discover things about myself that I hadn't even found out. And as someone who has grew up in this industry and just become a mom and a wife and an adult in this industry, I've learned a lot about myself. And I think that transition to corporate, I learned more about who I was and the value that I had, which motivated me. It was almost like every challenging obstacle that I had, learning corporate or learning new things or seeing the internal side, because that's a whole different world. I started to think, gosh, like I do have something to offer in this conversation, or because of my experience, I can bring this to the table, but also being willing to be coached in the sense of I've been my own boss for 15 years. And so stepping onto a team where I had many people to answer to, I had an incredible director that just empowered me to step into that position. And I think that's just the beauty of this industry at a whole, whether it's internal or external, field or corporate. But that was a decision that I made. And so even though I was expecting change, I really had to lean in. I had to stay true to who I was. I had to read books, listen to podcasts, motivate myself to say, I am willing and I am capable, and it's okay if I'm scared. There's someone out there that knows the answer. I just have to look for it. But my most recent change, as many of you, and especially like that was a change that I was not anticipating. And that was the closure of a company that I'd been with for 17 years. And it was a shock. I mean, it wasn't something I was anticipating. And now that change in that moment, that was scary. And coming from someone that has experienced a lot of challenges in their childhood and growing up, this one rocked my world. And in the moment, I reflect back to often when I sit in this office, I reflect to those moments of learning of that news and the feeling of failure or defeat or this is the end. Because when you're in this industry, you hear that a lot where people are like, oh, this is not going to last forever. And I was always like, well, I'll stay here until it stops. But it's that naysayer, that voice in the back of my head that was like, wait, there was an end to this. And so I really had to center myself that day. And I had to remember that I still believed in this industry. I still believed in what I did. I still believed in the power of it, but it was going to require me to get uncomfortable. And so that day was really painful. I cried so hard that week. I think my eyes were swollen. I didn't eat. It was emotional. But again, I came to the end of that. That was on a Tuesday. And by that Friday, I just started to look in the mirror in the mornings and say, like, I still believe in this industry. I still believe in the power of this. So, what does that next chapter look like for me? And at that time, I had no idea. I was actually super nervous because I thought, I really don't I believe in going back to the field, but I know where my value and my strength is. I just don't know where that is because I'm very cautious about who I link arms with.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be a reputable company that I could love just as much as I did the previous one. And so I will say, because I have coached and trained so many people that are coming out of that transition of doors closing or companies changing their structure,
Yeah.
you really have to shut out the external things that you cannot control and ask yourself, what is it that I want? What is important to me? And for me, it was still important that I believed in this opportunity. And it was important that I believed in myself that I could do it all over again. And so I had to listen to myself. I had to pray, spend a lot of time alone, a lot of self care, a lot of driving the roads by myself with the windows down and no music. I even drove up and sat. We live on the Blue Ridge Parkway in the mountains. And so I went and sat at a couple of out overlooks there and just prayed and listened to worship music and just started to really channel. I know what I believe in. I know what's important to me. And even though that looked like forever, doesn't mean that just because that changed, it doesn't mean I can't have a new season or a new chapter. And so that's when I gave myself permission, which is what I tell people all the time, permission to dream again, permission to get excited again, permission to realize that there is something that comes after. But if you're not willing to look for it, that door could stay closed forever.
Yeah. Oh, so good, Hope. And I know we talked about this just briefly before we clicked to record, but you mentioned it is a grieving process, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many will resonate with that. Like I look back at organizations I've built and opportunities that I've had, and every once in a while I see a product or I see, a little girl wearing a dress that I used to sell, and I'm like, oh man, like remember when I was in that and oh, remember when I was at that hotel for that conference or those memories, those core memories that you've made that's really shaped who you've become today. And I think with any of that, it's appreciating and loving that you've had that opportunity. But like you said, looking forward and knowing that if you've done it before, you can do it again. There's more out there for you. There's something else next. And
Mhm.
reassuring yourself that you're going to find that and it's out there waiting for you and being open to that. Because I think that that's, like you said, giving yourself permission to dream again. Like, what could this look like? Where could I end up? And, I think with so many things right now and how things are changing rapidly, I feel like in the direct sales industry, we've been hearing over and over again, like there's a lot of change, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of change. But I'd love to hear also from your perspective, what do you think is not changing about the industry and the way that we support our customers and the way teams and communities are formed? What do you see not changing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yes, things change overnight, I feel like, in this industry. And I think you have to be receptive to that in the sense of, that's okay. For me, change is growth, change is the ability to put another foot forward. But when it comes to the heart of who we are at this industry, it's relationships. And sometimes I think I've said that out loud, either on a call or at an event, and someone's like, yeah, we know, it seems kind of cliche, but it's the truth. People still desire to connect. And if you pay attention to affiliates or social sellers that are on TikTok or on Instagram, the one thing that you'll find in the comments are people that are resonating with the individual that's on screen. So instead of just buying a product from someone named Megan, they're buying a product from someone named Megan that has 3 kids, that's a soccer mom. Her husband works, in construction. She lives in a small town. They start to resonate with that.
Yeah.
And that's what people are drawn to. And that's why people, I think, are obsessed with TikTok and Instagram, is because they start to feel connected to those individuals. There are so many times where somebody will say, this is such and such on TikTok. She's my best friend. She just doesn't know it because you genuinely start to connect with people and you feel like you know them. People crave that.
Yeah.
And, our COVID, of course, built a society where we're comfortable behind the camera and comfortable behind the keyboard, but people still desire to connect. And I think that's what's really powerful with companies that are willing to innovate and try new things is that you can be innovative and you can go a different direction with technology and try new things, but you can still connect and you can still build genuine relationships and connections. The other part of that is transparent practices. People are starting to pay attention to who they're shopping with, who they're buying product from, what that company stands for, what they represent. And companies that are authentic and transparent about what their mission is, what's in their products, what they stand for, who they support, people are paying attention to that because I think our natural instinct is to want to be a part of something bigger than us. And this industry alone has the power to do that right behind the screen. So it's a really powerful thing that I think we can lean into, but people still crave that connection. It looks different and it feels a little bit different, but it can be just as powerful.
Yeah. Well, and from my perspective too, when we think about direct sales, and I've said that a million times too, like relationships at the heart of this business,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what really differentiates us. But with all the technology out there, with all the automation, with all the AI, with all of some of the, tech trends that we're seeing, and honestly, e-commerce just getting better. Like, I just got a mailer from Sephora and I looked at it twice and realized it was customized to me. It had my name on it. It had the products that
Mm.
I purchased. Like it was very tailored to who I am and what I like. But there's nothing quite like real human to human connection, right? And I think in the direct sales world, that's one thing that nobody can take away is how good we are at connecting with people. And like you said, I think people are looking for that authenticity. They're looking for that trust factor. I think there's a lot more resistance to that. And maybe it is because there's AI and all kinds of things out there. People are like, is this real news? Is this fake news? Like, is this legit? Like, who is this person? Right? But they're craving that. And so I think it's just such a niche that we have as an industry that we can show up as our real self and connect with real people and serve them in a real way that other brands just can't replicate because they don't have
Yeah.
a field. And I think that's
Well,
powerful.
and it's also the fact that we can take it in person. Like we had a reason to be together in person. And I remember when I first started in this industry, I don't remember where I was, but somebody had shared a picture of like the old fashioned Tupperware party where all these older women were like passing around Tupperware bowls. And so that, of course, in my head as a kid, that's what's drilled in my head too. And so as I started to build my business and I coach and I train this a lot, like having parties, yes, is key in this business, but it is an experience. And like you have the ability as an independent consultant to craft and build an experience that stands out from other people. So I'm in a really small town. I built my entire business in this small town. So the moment somebody's like, I live in the mountains or I live in a small town, no one's here. I'm like, same. I got one stoplight and all of my leaders were within an hour radius from me. But I wanted to be known as their consultant. I wanted them to see me out at a store and be like, that's my girl. That's that party I went to. I just had that mentality where I wanted it to stand out. I wanted someone to leave a party and say, I cannot wait for the next one because I've left parties where I thought, I really hope I don't get an invitation to the next one. I mean, I know that's terrible, but sometimes they're just so scripted and so mundane that you're just like, after here, you eat your finger foods, you shop, and then you're out the door. I didn't want that. So having, parties at a Mexican restaurant, I've had them at a bowling alley. I've done them on patios. We've had a pool party. Like there's just a unique ability for us to be able to craft that where Ulta or Sephora may not.
Yeah.
And so I always empower consultants like, yeah, you can build a business online and you can lean into the ability to be authentic and transparent on social media, but you still have permission to get out and open the door and experience that. And it doesn't have to be the same old pack up all your products, put them on a table. It can literally be sitting at a restaurant, scan a QR code to shop the catalog and have five of your favorite products there or people that bring their own product that have used it and everybody just kind of, shares what they love. But we have the ability to do that. And I think we have forgotten. that we have the ability to do that. We have permission to still get together, but more than anything, you get to create the experience that you want. That's entirely up to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think it is kind of unique that we're in a position to be able to bring people together and create
Mhm.
community. And so I think in the world we're living in today, like we could all use just a little bit more of that in our life. So, so good. Well, I want to hear from you a little bit on what you're excited about, whether that is kind of shifts we're seeing in the industry, things that are up and coming, modern ways to run your business. Of course, what's happening over there at Jordan Essentials, what you're excited about as you're looking at the rest of the year. What are you most
Um,
excited?
as far as the industry, I think often we look at everything that's happening and we get a little bit nervous. Is there opportunity still there? And I do believe that. I still very much believe in this opportunity, but I do think it requires innovation. I think it requires a new way of thinking and not saying like that used to work or when we did that, we had explosive growth because we're just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so companies that are willing to adjust and even quite honestly make some hard decisions at times makes a big difference. But I can say this because I sat in the field, so you can say it too. But when you've sat on both sides of this, you also see the ability of finding a field that's willing to adapt with the company.
Yeah.
And so whenever they make hard decisions or, they adjust a little bit, it really is stepping back to say, like, okay, what does this mean? What is the reason for this? And how do we position and put our best foot forward and change things? And so I do believe that this industry is still very strong and has a great opportunity, but it requires companies that are going to be innovative, be willing to change, and a field that's willing to trust that. And I know that that can be difficult. I know it can be difficult, especially when, we see things like compensation structures and things change. I love this industry, but I have a huge heart for Party Plan because I think it's just the foundation of who we are as an industry at whole. And so being a part of Party Plan definitely means, being mindful of this is the decisions, making healthy choices, healthy choices that are financially smart, that put you in a good position for growth and allow you to go through a slow season as well as a big season. So just being really mindful of sustaining the business. So yeah, I'm excited about the industry. I'm excited about how companies are starting to really realize like, hey, we might need to change a few things. I'm really proud of companies that have leaned into their field to ask, what is your advice? What do you see? What do you think? And leaning into their upper leadership, I think that stands the test of time. For me personally, like I said earlier, I never thought that I would be anywhere else. I thought I was at my forever home. And so when the grief and the hard stop, hits and you're like, what's next? You realize that if you just give yourself permission to step forward, you can. And for me, like I said earlier, I wasn't just going to say yes to anything. If it meant me going back to a corporate job outside of my home, then that's what I would have done. But for me to link arms with another company, I knew I wanted to be a part of Party Plan. I wanted to be a part of a company that was debt free and that was making smart choices, that had a CEO that was heavily involved in the field. And, coming from corporate, there were questions that I knew to ask that I didn't a few years ago. And so, I was interviewing while they were interviewing me for sure. But there was no doubt after my second conversation with Nancy, I've known her for over a year now. I was drawn to her early on. I loved her energy. Just as a CEO, sometimes you don't see them out with the field as much. And Nancy was just as excited as a new consultant. Like that was so evident to me where I was just like, I don't know what, oil she uses or what lotion she's putting on.
All that magnesium.
Hot magnesium. I'm like, it was so energizing and it fueled me. So every conversation drew me there. So I said yes to Jordan Essentials back in November. I shared with you before we started recording, I'm drinking from a fire hose because we are definitely in growth mode. But I'm so excited about the opportunity to be innovative, but also to embrace who we are. Because even as a 25-year-old company, there's so many people that don't know about this product.
Yeah.
And I sometimes am like, this is the best kept secret ever. But when I came in to my role, I made it really clear to the field. One of my missions is for us to become a household name. And I think it's exciting that we have incredible products. They're high quality, they're non toxic. We have a strong sense of community that for me is unmatched. This culture and community here at Jordan Essentials is unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I just never thought I would say that. but they have incredible leaders that are willing to lean in and embrace people as they come in, no matter where you've come from in the walk that you had. It really is linking arms, and they are on a huge trajectory of growth.
Yeah.
And I am so excited to be a part of a company that is sticking to their core values and that is being mindful of the decisions that they're making, but committed to quality products and giving the best to their field. So I will be honest that I have not been this excited for a long time. I've also feel like I've tapped into a level of passion that I haven't felt for a really long time. But I think that's a part of being an incredible home office team and a CEO that is as visionary as Nancy is in a field that is willing to do all the things. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. But I feel like we're at such a unique position right now to make our mark and to put our name out there and get our products in front of people.
I love that. Oh, I love that. Well, and I echo that. I had a chance to be at conference last year and get to know a lot of the Geordies over there and just an incredible community. And I'm so excited for you to add value to that and get to be part of that mission. And one thing you mentioned, which, I've thought a lot about as we've seen changes in the industry, as we've seen pivots happening, is just this curiosity factor around who's going to lead those changes? Is that coming from the corporate team? Is that coming from the sales field? Is that coming from leadership? Right. And as we kind of figure out what this next season of direct sales looks like, because I'm with you, we're not going anywhere, right? We're hoping strong and there's so much opportunity here. I think it's going to be really cool to see those companies that innovate and rise. And like you said, maybe make some tough choices and hard decisions to get to that next level. But I also have a strong belief in the field and feel like a lot of that is going to be kind of from the ground up. Hey, we found a new way to do this. We found something that's working over here. Here's how we bring that enthusiasm and that momentum and that excitement back to the sales field. So, I mean, it's probably the answer is probably both. It's coming from both sides, but I think it's going to be really cool to kind of see how things unfold and where we see that growth and that energy that is fueled really from change, which, brings us full circle on this episode. This is incredible. I'm so excited for you and your vision and what you're bringing to the table over at Jordan Essentials. I have to ask you what your favorite Jordan Essentials product is.
It's hard. I always tell people about too, but I will say the very first thing that Nancy ever gave me was our Renew magnesium stick. I was sick, I had a headache, and it was kind of a hot mess when I met her. So it's a core memory. Was battling some illness. But she handed me like I literally am sitting beside her at this table and I'm like rubbing my shoulders and I'm already taking Tylenol and I'm taking ibuprofen and she just passes that stick over to me and I didn't even ask questions. I'm like, is it new? Is it used? I don't even care. Just tell me where to put it. Rub it on and it seems like everywhere you're hurting, just put it. And I did. And I did like a part of me was like, is this in my head or did I really get the benefits of this? But then I took that stick with me become a faithful friend because I have a lot of headaches and TMJ issues. And I'll be the first to say that I've been able to stop medication that I've been on for years because I have used those faithfully. So I would say that is definitely my number one. I have one in my car, one in my office, one in my purse. I take it everywhere. So that one's the number one for me.
So great. Well, over at our house, it would definitely be the sleep spray. Pretty sure my 10-year-old son will not sleep without it. But
Love
takes
it.
it to sleepovers with him, all the places. My friends are like, we spritzed him. I think he's going to sleep over just fine.
I love that. Yeah, those stories, like that gets me so excited where I'm just like, okay, let's go do a party. Well, like let's go talk about these products.
So good. And my other question I ask all my guests is what your favorite office supply is.
Mine's gonna be pens. I'm obsessed with pens, markers. I have way too many to keep count of. Notebooks would probably come in there as well. I don't even use half of them.
And if you had in hand, just
Yeah, like if I don't write pretty on the first page, then it's time for a new one. Like it's kind of a sickness, but it's okay.
oh my.
I'll get into recovery one day for it. So
Yeah, or not. It's okay if you.
it's fine.
Well, Hope, tell us where we can connect with you. I know that you're also an author. We didn't even talk about your book, but tell us where we can find you, find your book, connect with you at Jordan Essentials, all the things.
Yeah, thank you. So, of course, we are on socials for Jordan Essentials. So, follow us, come along this journey with us. It's such an exciting time. I personally am on Instagram and Facebook just as Hope Shortt, nothing fancy. And yeah, I did put out a book last year that has been about my direct sales journey. I believe in this industry for so many reasons, but for me, it was a transformation journey. This industry unlocked purpose and value and worth. And I just have always said I felt like it was a vehicle that God used to get to my heart and unlock my purpose. And so I put it all on paper last year, 7 years of writing to share my journey and some of my tips and tricks in this industry, things that I had to learn the hard way, but also embracing that journey as a mom and a wife as well, and just what it did for our family. And then looking for the future, I talk about navigating changes, making hard choices, going over to corporate, what that entailed. So I just want that book to inspire everyone, but specifically women that step in this industry, that you can make a life changing decision with one little enrollment kit, but it does require staying steadfast and true to who you are and who you've been called to be and dreaming every single day.
I love it. Can we find that on Amazon? Is that the best place?
You can, yeah, it's on Amazon. It's called Eat Enough. It's also on Barnes and Noble, Walmart. So yeah, lots of different places to get it.
Amazing. Thank you, Hope. This has been an incredible conversation. I'm so excited for everyone that's listening in. I hope you're leaving this episode feeling inspired and encouraged and motivated and giving yourself permission to dream again. So, thank you, Hope, so much for being here. I look forward to staying in touch and following your journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. I appreciate it.
This episode is sponsored by CintShare. CintShare is the #1 social media scheduler for direct sellers and loved by creators in any industry. It's truly your one-stop shop for all things social. Join hundreds of thousands of social sellers and entrepreneurs who turn to CintShare for free social media training and resources. Get started today with your free 30-day trial at moderndirectseller.com/CintShare.